In this video, we'll be seeing what economy class is like on the world's best airline. Good morning from Dubai International Airport. Today I'll be taking a series of Qatar Airways flights in economy class. The first one will be flown aboard a Dreamliner 787-900, and that'll just be a short flight over to Qatar's hub in Doha. And then my second flight will be aboard one of Qatar's smaller aircrafts, an A320, and I'll be continuing my journey from Doha over to Larnaca in Cyprus. Qatar operates all of their flights out of Terminal 1 over here at Dubai Airport, so I'll be departing from Terminal 1 today, which means I won't be able to experience the grandeur of Emirates over in Terminal 3, but that's alright. Now in the past I've flown Qatar Airways in economy class a number of times, and I've noticed that the experience can vary quite a lot depending on the aircraft type, the route, and sometimes other stuff too. And while their premium classes, such as their Q Suites product, might get the most publicity, their economy class is interesting too. So I thought I'd just take you on board with me to show you what it's like flying Qatar on two different routes on two different aircrafts. And it looks like boarding is just about to commence, so I'm gonna head over to the gate. Okay. Changed 2 times. Yeah, thank you. And interestingly, they had a very last-minute aircraft change. Actually, this flight started off with an A350-1000, and then they changed it to a Dreamliner, like I just told you. But now they've changed it to a 777. I think it's a 777-300. It looks like. So I'm just about to board here on the last jet bridge. It's nice how they have the separate classes boarding on this wide-body aircraft. But unfortunately, I'll have a narrow-body aircraft on my longer flight, but I'm still looking forward to this one, so let's go see what it's like on board. Hi, how are you today? Okay, thank you, sir. Hi, good day. So, at the gate, they changed our seats again. My wife and I are pretty happy because the guy in charge of the flight gave us this free empty seat, so Ross got the aisle, and I've got the window. But this economy class is looking pretty nice on board this 777. There's a lot of legroom here. I mean, for me, legroom is one of the most important things, and Qatar Airways usually does it right. I only had one flight once that was a little bit cramped with them on board an A350-900, but it will be really interesting to see what the seats are like over on that A320 that I'm going to take later. And I mean, they keep it pretty simple here. Everything's clean, nice, good looking, and there will be in-flight entertainment on this short flight. This one's a bit older. This is an older 777, but I think it'll do the job for an hour. And if things go according to plan, there should be a short little meal service on this flight, so I'm looking forward to see what that's like too. Plus, I hold Qatar Silver status, which is just their lowest status. It's not usually worth that much, to be honest, especially if you're not flying on Qatar. But they let me be one of the first to board in this case, and they have a special Silver Lounge over at Doha Airport, so I definitely want to check that out. And I know it's only a short flight, but one thing I've always liked about Qatar is that they have a lot of good in-flight entertainment. But I totally forgot to take my headphones down from the overhead bin, so I'm actually going to see if they have a pair that I can just use for the flight. In fact, every time I flew Qatar economy in the past, they always had a little amenity kit for economy class too, but I don't see it on this one. I mean, I'm assuming it's just because it's a really short flight. And it's so nice that he gave me this headset. And it looks like they're about done with boarding. And the aircraft is like definitely more than half empty. So, I mean, that's nice. And Qatar Airways only operates like, I think 4 or 5 flights out of this airport per day. But the next aircraft just pulled up here, another Qatar Airways. Looks like a 777 as well. And I'm super happy they have the AC like on full blast, because over here in Dubai in the summer, it's summer by the way, it's really hot. It's like 40 something degrees Celsius out, or somewhere over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. So since I boarded first, I'm glad that the aircraft temperature is already very well regulated. But it's kind of fun to be one of the first to board over at Dubai Airport, because you get to watch the runway and all these different aircraft taxiing out and taking off and landing, etc. This is one of the most busy airports in the world, just after Atlanta Hartsfield. And a nice little benefit, even though I just have the lowest status, is that they give you a pre-flight drink. But honestly, status or not, I've never flown any other airline in economy class and been given a pre-flight drink. And now it's 11:46, so 1 minute after our official takeoff time. But they just armed the doors for departure, and it looks like we're about to push back. And the plane just started to push back, so let's see how long the taxi is. This airport is just always super busy. I mean, second busiest airport in the world, you know. But it is kind of fun to just be on the ground here too, as long as you're not too delayed, because Dubai Airport also has by far the largest amount of A380s operating on a daily basis out of it. And there are just all kinds of cool aircraft and interesting airlines to watch passing by. I mean, there's like over 100 of those Emirates A380s taking off and landing here every single day. And Dubai's a really interesting city to visit, so I'm a little sad to leave. And it looks like we're heading over to our final runway, but it's always a little hard to tell at DXB. This is a really busy airport. And you can just see aircraft lined up ready to take off every which way. Everybody's just waiting to take off. And I mean, if you got kids, this airport might be a fun place too. You could just like count the A380s. I mean, there's like 1, 2, we'll keep counting, 3, 4, 5, and I could keep counting, 6, 7, but we're about to take off. So no more A380s for today. Let's see what this flight is like. It's really like super smoggy or foggy or who even knows what in Dubai, so you can't see all that much after you get to any significant altitude. And on top of that, this flight will be mostly flown over the Persian Gulf, or Arabian Gulf as it's called around here. So we'll just be seeing water for the next 50 minutes. But check out this bathroom. This thing is really big. I mean, of course, we're on a wide-body airplane, so there's just more space to have big bathrooms like this, but this is pretty luxurious, especially for economy class. Qatar always has eau de toilette. Nice soap, and just the basic furnishings that you find in any bathroom. And the really important thing is that it's really, really clean. But okay, probably nobody else has even used this bathroom yet. I actually headed over here the very second the seatbelt sign went off, so I'm probably the first guest to be using it. But we're already nearing about 20 minutes into the flight, meaning we're almost halfway through the flight. But I really want a coffee, so let's see if I can't get one.
Can I offer some tea, coffee?
Coffee, please.
Coffee.
Yes.
Sugar, milk? One?
Just milk, please.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'll just send it to you.
Okay, thank you so much. And I honestly think the flight attendant might have just overheard me talking about coffee, because he offered me some coffee and now he's going to bring it to me. I'm just going to get back to my seat now. And Qatar Airways, best airline in the world this year, right? And the economy class so far is definitely showing that. This nice little mezza. And I just really love hummus, but there's also some baba ganoush in there. There's some tabbouleh. This is nice on a 50-minute flight. Pita bread, orange juice.
Sir, Gary.
Thank you, sir.
So much careful spots. Awesome.
Perfect. Thanks so much.
Good morning. Ahead of our scheduled time of arrival. Doha is 1 hour behind Dubai time zone.
Everything they're serving here is like really good. This is not airplane food. Like, this is better than airplane food. And I'm sitting just in economy class on such a short flight. This is one of the best short economy class flights I've ever been on. And honestly, if I was just rating this Qatar Airways experience only on this flight, it would be like a complete 10 out of 10. But we do have one more flight to review. So let's take in some of those landing views, and then we'll fast forward to 2 days from now to see what it's like to fly on an A320 over to Cyprus. And we ended up doing just a little bit of circling around because I'm sure there's lots of air traffic around Doha, as there kind of always is. But we're just in our final descent now. Looks like our altitude is pretty low and we're about to land. Kind of hard landing though.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Doha, the state of Qatar, your gateway to the world.
Wow, a near perfect flight, and it's a little bit early. Almost unheard of. And we just pulled up to the gate, so I'll see you all in 2 days to see what that second flight is like.
Ready at Government Station.
And now it's 2 days later, and I'm headed back over to the airport. The flight leaves at 8:15, but it's just a little bit after 5 a.m. and I'm heading to the airport slightly early because I was not able to do online check-in this time. So I'll have to make a little stop at the counter and then I should be on my way to the Silver Lounge. And this will also be my first time visiting the Silver Lounge. Up until the end of last year, I actually held Qatar Gold just through a status match, and for reasons completely unknown to me, instead of getting rid of my status after I failed to meet the requirements to keep the status, they just lowered my status to silver. And unlike almost any other airline on Earth, silver status, which is equivalent to One World Ruby, actually gets you lounge access when you're flying on Qatar Airways. So in that sense, we're having quite a unique start to this morning, and I'm really interested to see what the Silver Lounge is actually like. If I had to guess, it's probably better than many of the lounges operated, for example, in Europe or North America, that require you to have higher status tiers to enter them. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Have a good day. Wow, Qatar Airways has really nice on-board service most of the time. what they offer over at their airport in Doha it's a lot worse in all honesty. And it gets even worse when everything gets combined with the regular airport staff that don't work for Qatar Airways. I mean, they're not really usually that friendly, and there's often a super long line at immigration or even just to transit sometimes. So I don't really love the experience they have to offer over the airport, but we're about to exit Qatar over here, so I will catch you on the other side and we'll check out that Silver Lounge. So I found some signage to the Silver Lounge, but I do wonder why everything else that's on a sign here is in bright gold or bright silver and the Silver Lounge is in dark gray.
So you have 2 launch passes, deducting 1 and 2 on will be remaining in your account.
So far it looks relatively spacious over here, but spacious or not, this lounge seems a bit overcrowded. I'd assume because it's one of the only lounges where you can get in with this lowly status. Makeshift exercise room over there. I think my hopes might have been a little bit too high. People sleeping in the lounge. And I think it was really only first glance that this lounge was spacious. It's really packed. I can't even find a seat yet. I think I might have found one over there in the corner. And the food options are definitely poorer than like their other Al Morjan lounge, or I forgot the other, I think it's Al Maha lounge. Looks like everything's in little plastic cups here. But okay, there's still some nice options. And they've got like some Egyptian full medames, congee, sausages, like typical breakfast stuff. And other than coffee and a few drinks, that seems to be the extent of it. And there will be someone breathing down your neck because this place is packed. At the end of the lounge, away from the food, it is a lot calmer, but there's a lot of people like randomly sleeping on 4 seats. But luckily there is a secret coffee machine over here because the other one, a very long line. But there is one big plus of this lounge. Obviously this airport is almost only Qatar Airways flights, but there's a nice little viewing point here. Did notice one thing about this lounge that's just like unacceptable though. It's like pastries here, and then there's absolutely no way to take the pastries without using your hands. Come on, Qatar Airways. But the good news about the lounge is that they've got coffee and breakfast. So I suppose you ought to just be happy that you have access to any lounge when you have silver status, and that's how they treat it. So put as simply as possible, this lounge is good if you don't have access to any other lounge at this airport. But I do have a flight to catch and there's not much else to see over here at the lounge, so let's head over to the gate and get to boarding. And I'm headed over to the C gate, so the fastest way to get there is to hop on this little cool transparent people mover they have at Doha Airport. And they've got some really interesting decorations over here at this airport. And since I'm departing from gate C53, I kind of got to go through, well, at least the side of this garden, kind of reminiscent of Singapore's Changi Airport. I mean, not quite as grand, but pretty nice.
Ladies and gentlemen, boarding will be
Time to
announced
board.
by zone numbers indicated on your boarding pass.
I'm here about 50 minutes before the flight, so that's nice. Should give a lot of time for an on-time departure. And I did inquire about a very last-minute upgrade at the gate, which isn't always possible with Qatar Airways. It was possible, but the price was like more than $500 for a pretty short flight, so not very good value. And as I think is pretty often the case here with smaller planes, the boarding will commence via a bus. So I'm interested to see if I actually have to step out in that hot 45-degree desert heat. In the heat for 2 seconds. And in the end, they seem to fit the entire flight on one bus, so boarding at the beginning made no difference. It just meant you would wait in the bus in the air conditioning rather than in the airport in the air conditioning. But after around a 10-minute wait in the bus, we started our little journey over to the plane, and we should be off pretty soon. And we've just made it to the gate, so let's see what Qatar Airways looks like on a narrow-body flight. It's a little bit longer than the last one. And even just a few seconds out in this heat, well, it's less than ideal actually over at this airport. Looks like they've got some construction to deal with the big amount of air traffic that they have here, but there could be a better solution than this, I would think. But anyway, let's see what the onboard experience is like. Hi, how are you today?
Yeah, fantastic. Welcome aboard.
Thank you. And this is the business class that they're selling for like over 500. Good morning, how are you? So we've made it back here. Going to be sitting in row 20. And the legroom is not quite as generous as that 777, but it's not as bad as Ryanair. And they've got all the window shades closed because I imagine this aircraft has been sitting here for quite a while in the heat. It's very hot. But in the aircraft it's not that hot, they've got the AC going. But there seems to be an issue with the middle seat in front of us where it's a bit broken. And I'm not sure of the exact age of this aircraft, but you can definitely feel But the interior just feels older, and it's got I think a slightly older entertainment system. It's still got all that Oryx One, but it just looks like something out of, I don't know, like the 90s, or at least the early 2000s. And with this flight being a bit longer, they give you a little blanket. It's not the most luxurious of blankets, but it'll do. And a little branded pillow, and some headphones, so you don't have to ask for them. Thank you, yeah.
And if you need anything, just call me at any of the cabins.
Alright, can I ask you, do you have the seating chart right there?
Yes.
Is there any full row empty on this flight by chance?
No, it's actually it's almost
pretty full. Okay, I thought so.
right there. Some empty seats, but for 3, let's just capture all the.
Okay, yeah, no stress. Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Thanks so much. And it really is a nice touch that when you're flying on Qatar Airways and you even just have their lowest status, they come over, introduce themselves, and give you some nice personalized service. It's definitely not something that every airline is doing, especially for the lowest status, so it's very appreciated. Well, as it turns out, there are actually 2 buses, so the second bus has been taking quite a while to get over here. We're just waiting for everybody to board from that second bus.
Cabin crew, all customers on board.
And it sounds like everybody's boarded now. And there seems to be a chance that these seats will remain empty, and I can actually go out there and have a whole row to myself.
If you have any questions, the cabin crew will be happy to.
And we've just started pushing back now, and I was really lucky. My wife was also really lucky, and we were able to get a whole row to ourselves just because we asked the flight attendant proactively. So it's always worth doing that, but I don't think having status ever hurts. But there was a bit of a discrepancy, so we were seated back in row 20, and then they said we could move to row 14 after boarding was completed. But apparently the flight attendants hadn't really gone over that with each other, and someone else had already been allotted the seat. But luckily that person was happy to move to another free seat. But in the end, we're sitting here and it was no issue at all. And it's also worth pointing out that these exit row seats that we got moved up to are a little bit nicer, a little bit more spacious. And even though they don't have any recline, I think they'll be a little more comfortable than our original seats back in row 20. And of course, getting a little bump up to row 14 is a bonus. I wasn't expecting this, so it's a nice surprise to happen. But it's not something you should ever plan on happening. But it looks as though we might have actually been directed to a different runway, and this taxi is taking a little longer than I expected it to. So I predict in the end we'll be a few minutes late, but not too bad getting over to Larnaca. But during our taxi, we seem to be going by a nice little view of the city, although it's kind of foggy there today. And it looks like we should be the ones to take off right after that Dreamliner over there in front of us. And while since I'm sitting on the right side of the plane, this takeoff probably won't have the full city view. I think I'll get a few nice glimpses on the way up. And this is the side of the aircraft that won't be under the sun for the whole flight. So I'll just pop my earplanes in, and then I'll be ready to go fly. And of course, since this is an emergency exit row, you've always got to read through this stuff, and they'll brief you and make sure that you speak English or another language that should be understood by most people on the plane. But here we go, we're taking off, so let's check out these views and see if they're what I hope they are. What a smooth takeoff, and it's always nice to take off kind of simultaneously with another aircraft. In the distance you can see this other Qatar Airways plane flying there. And I don't think 2 people in a row is such a big deal looking the other way there. But it is really like not a clear day here, so there might not be that much to see. Let's see. But so far the takeoff has been super smooth. There was just literally one bump. But one thing to keep in mind when sitting in an exit row is that it can often get much hotter or much colder there because a lot of the air from outside can kind of just make its way in. And right now, during takeoff, it's pretty hot. But I'm sure it's going to cool down in just a minute because we'll reach a much higher altitude and that cold air will start coming in slowly. We're just flying over airspace of Bahrain as far as I can tell now. One interesting thing about the takeoff though is that there's this guy that's been basically laying down sleeping on his whole row of seats since he boarded around the same time as us. And nobody told him to move at all for the takeoff. So it's interesting that Qatar Airways chooses to do nothing about that. The second the seatbelt sign popped off, the flight attendant came down the way with our meals and our drinks. And just by holding the lowest Qatar Airways status, you get the first choice of the 3 options that they have on board. So I chose a vegetable omelet and some fruit, and it looks pretty solid for a breakfast on a plane. They've got these things just like on JetBlue. And this is definitely a more substantial meal than they served on that shorter flight I had from Dubai. This is not a bad way to cruise over Saudi Arabia, not bad at all. This is the main meal, the omelet. This looks like some kind of chia and yogurt concoction. And I guess it's sweet. It's nice for breakfast. It's a great thing. Although this croissant looks like smashed up, I think it might be. It looks like it might taste alright. And it might seem like a small thing, but having real cutlery on a flight, it's really nice, especially in economy class. So let's see how this food is. It actually looks quite good for an airplane in economy. It's a typical triangular hash brown. Of course, it was frozen at one time. But, you know, it's just one step down from the Waffle House, so it's pretty decent. And an omelet. But I've got to say, with one small exception, the service on board this flight is just as good as that flight that I took from Dubai over to Doha 2 days ago. Plus, the crew came around a second and third time for drinks, and the views over Saudi Arabia just continue to be really impressive. And there's only a little over an hour left in this flight, so let's go check out the bathroom. Sometimes on these narrow body, longer flights, it's hard to get the chance to get up and stretch your legs, but that's really important when the flight's over like 2 or 3 hours. So it's nice to have an excuse to do that. Let's head back and see what the bathroom looks like over here. It's a little bit of a line to the bathroom, but these back rows can be fun. Like, you can sleep, they're often very empty, so you can just lay out on them, but then you've got to sit next to the restroom. So, and just like the last flight, this bathroom is pretty clean. So, you know, this is just the narrow body experience. Actually, if they had been offering a wide body on this route, I would have just chosen that. And honestly, it's just a small thing, but it is a really nice touch that you get this eau de toilette when you're flying on Qatar, even in economy. And it should be time to descend just about now. And I do think normally this flight route would actually be a little bit different, but due to the ongoing conflict, we're flying over the Sinai Peninsula, and we're staying, it seems, pretty far away from the Palestinian territories in Israel. So I suppose that might add a few minutes to the flight time, but overall, we seem to have taken a pretty efficient route. But before we get to Cyprus, it's worth pointing out that I got a pretty good deal for these 2 flights. Just a few months ago, Alaska Airlines totally changed up the amount of points required for many of their partner award flights. And as a result, a bunch of their partner airlines now have shorter award flights for just 7,500 Alaska miles. And the really cool thing about it is that Alaska Airlines continues to allow 1 free stopover on any award booking. So that's exactly what this was. For 7,500 points plus about $90 in taxes and fees, I booked a flight from Dubai over to Doha, a 2-day stopover in Doha, and then the second flight from Doha over to Cyprus. And the thing is, booking flights between the Middle East and Europe can often be a really expensive ordeal. Now, there are a few low-cost carriers that have started to operate routes between Europe and the Middle East, but they have super strict baggage policies, and the prices they offer aren't necessarily that low either. So with or without considering the stopover, this is a really solid way to get between Europe and the Middle East. And I know that Cyprus could be considered the Middle East geographically, but it's a part of the EU, and once you're in Cyprus, it's a lot easier to find cheap flights to get to other places within Europe. So I'm really finding these new Alaska Airlines 7,500 miles awards to offer some pretty good value, especially when flying between continents. Almost any other mileage program would charge me quite a lot more, and I wouldn't get a free stopover, so I'm pretty happy with it. So I mean, to sum up my experience here in Qatar Airways economy class on these shorter flights, there was pretty consistently great service, they had good food on board, and I got a pretty good deal on the tickets. So this is a pretty solid experience in economy class on what Skytrax says is the world's best airline. This is a really interesting landing because, as you can see, much of what you see there is Turkish-controlled Cyprus, but then we're actually going to another part of Cyprus that speaks Greek, and well, they speak Greek. Some people speak Greek in the Turkish-controlled part as well. And this whole region is just like a lot of different stuff next to each other, so it should be interesting for pilots to navigate here. But here we are, Cyprus. I'm really glad I didn't take Wizz Air.
Qatar Airways going places together.
They brought me here together. If you gave these 2 flights a rating, what would the rating be?
First one was 10, this one was like 7.
7. I'd probably probably give it an 8. I don't know. Say average 9 out of 10 for Qatar Airways. And if you found this flight review useful, then make sure to give this video a like and subscribe to my channel for a ton more travel videos. Thanks so much for watching. Thank you. Bye. Thank you. Have a good one.
You too. Good day.
And I don't know, but I'm suspecting there's going to be a long immigration line.